Hello everyone, welcome to our ReZero episode 24 review. I'm Silver.
And I'm Robo Oso.
This was a great payoff episode, a lot happened, so let's get to it. It begins and our save point has been updated to right before the previous episode started, so that's not frustrating at all for us as viewers. I know that I was sitting and going, oh god, when is he going to reload, basically. So this was very good save point placement by the author.
Yeah, the witch knew that we're getting close to the end of the series, so she didn't want, the punishment to be that bad this time.
And so the first thing he brings up after Felis nibbles on his ear is he asks about possession magic. He suggests that perhaps the Sin Bishops or Archbishops can possess people, and Julius just happens to have read one of the old books that explains possession magic. And we learn that the fingers are spare bodies that it seems he can jump into at will, that they are living people, but that he can basically co-opt them and take them over if he needs to. At this point, I was also thinking, what about the trader? The trader who was among the merchants? Are we going to figure that out? But that got paid off later, thankfully.
Yeah.
We then switch, and we get to see that Emilia is having some sort of stressed dream, flashing back to her conversation with Subaru and to everyone's reaction to her at the ceremony, where they were not willing to accept her because she's a half-elf. Puck shows up, says that he's worried about her because she tried to help the townspeople the day before. She was rejected by them. She feels really rejected by everyone. Then she goes downstairs, and Wilhelm shows up. He tells her that they're planning to evacuate. He explains that the letter was a misunderstanding. He says that they need to evacuate because of criminals. He doesn't say the witch cult. So I don't know whether that was a translation. I don't know if that was a translation issue or whether they're trying to mislead them or not.
It didn't sound like they were saying the Maho, magic cult. I think they just literally were saying a band of criminals.
Yeah. So I don't know why exactly he did that. He also neglects to mention Subaru's involvement or any mention of them killing the whale. Subaru then shows up undercover. We see that Rom is playing along with this. She doesn't seem to notice that it's Subaru, even though it's very obviously him.
Yes. Didn't change his voice. His clothes are the same under the robe.
Yeah, exactly. And then we learned that upon a flashback that Rom is working with Subaru because before they showed up, Felis and Subaru were riding on their dragons with signs that explained that the blank letter was a misunderstanding and a mistake by Subaru. Rom, thinking that Subaru's stupid, was very quick to accept that explanation, and so she's willing to work with Subaru and allows him to use the cloak, which Emilia had worn before. We then learn that this cloak makes it so that it has a spell on it that people won't be able to recognize you if you're wearing it. It also is implied, I guess, that you won't recognize the cloak itself, because you'd think Emilia might not be like, well, she might be like, I don't know who you are wearing that cloak, but that's my cloak. But okay, you don't notice anything about the cloak.
Yeah, a little confusing, and later on, when we talk about the kids, you're gonna see,
Well, no, that's the next thing. Okay. Is that the kids figure out who Emilia was when the only previous encounters they had with her was when she was wearing the cloak.
Yeah, and they even say, even though they couldn't see her face, they know that it's her, after meeting her. So if the kids could figure out that was Emilia, then man, she just really couldn't figure out that was Subaru.
Well, she does figure out it's Subaru, though, right?
Well, eventually, but it's
eventually, when he basically just he says something that only he would know.
Yeah, and then she's like, "Hey, wait, aren't you?"
Yeah, exactly. She doesn't actually finish the sentence.
I just wanted to go back to Wilhelm talking to Puck. I just want to say
right. Yeah.
When he's talking to Puck, he calls him the Great Spirit, and the language he's using is the most formal, honorific Japanese ever, which makes sense given Wilhelm's character. But I just love that he is addressing this cute, furry, talking, magical animal with this very, very formal Japanese, and that is just anime at its finest.
I really enjoyed that Subaru seems to have figured out a perfect strategy. He uses the spy to their advantage. They've given him information that's 2 hours behind schedule so they can ambush the Sin Archbishop and get all the fingers who are in different locations. We then get back to the center of the town, and all of the Wolf Rider warriors come back, and we get Mimi saying, hooray, we killed them all!
The cutest declaration of victory ever.
Yeah, they're the most adorable murderers. And then we switch from there to Subaru being reunited with Beetlejuice, and he does a much better job on his second playthrough of fooling him.
I really actually love how this scene was handled. The way he moves Beetlejuice with what he's saying, how he just starts crying at the beginning, and how he made the villagers cry as well by doing that really low bow that even got like the dirt on his forehead. Like, he is doing a really good job at moving people's heartstrings in this episode really well. So I'm very pleased with like how he did this.
Yeah, and he mentions the ordeal, and Beetlejuice, because he's trusting him, explains that Emilia is intended to be a vessel for the witch's soul. So this got rid of my theory that Emilia would either turn out to be the witch,
right,
turn out to be an aspect of the witch's soul, like she's fragmented somehow, or that she would maybe be a blood relative. So it appears to literally be what Emilia's been saying the whole time, that she just coincidentally looks like the witch. There's probably more to it than that that'll be explained later, but at least it's not exactly how I expected things would play out, so that was at least interesting.
And it does make sense, too, that every time we have seen, part of the witch's face, like when she's grabbed his heart and done other things, it does kind of show that wherever she is, her spirit is contained in something. She's sealed somehow. So Beetlejuice did talk about this fated date that's going to happen. So definitely some plans are in the works for some sort of ritual or some moment with the moon or other circumstances where she's going to be able to get out of this container somehow. But I guess they still need Emilia as the vessel.
Then Phyllis kicks off the ambush by saying Tora, 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 which makes me think of Pearl Harbor, but I'm sure the Japanese don't only associate that phrase with Pearl Harbor like Americans do, so let's just move on from that. We learn that Beetlejuice, that his Shadow Hands ability is called Authority, at least that's what he referred to it as. And I liked Subaru taunting him by telling him about how much more intimate he is with the witch than Beetlejuice. And I was liking this clever version of Subaru, this competent version of Subaru. He doesn't have the physical strength of a lot of the other characters in the traditional or magic ability or sort of the strength from combat that we would see from a traditional hero. So he's in kind of the more Odysseus vein of being clever and winning through his wits. So I liked seeing that.
And I like, too, that he's more secure now. Ever since Wilhelm gave him that great speech, it's really kind of, had him be able to face this head on, and he's not as afraid of as much of dying.
I really liked that when Beetlejuice takes off and is flying, that we get to see things from Mimi and TV's perspective, because it just looked... I was imagining, like, wow, I wonder what this looks to other people, because it looked kind of cool when he was in the ball in the hands, like, resting on the finger. And then they see him, and he's just, like, seated flying in the air, like kind of like Wonder Woman's jet or something. It just looked really goofy.
With his knees, like, up under his chin, like he's watching TV on the floor or something.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like, I wonder, like, I know Beetlejuice is crazy, but I wonder if he has ever, like, thought about that, like, how he appears to people who can't see his hands, because if I was him, I would try to, like, lie flat on my belly so it looks like I'm awkwardly flying or something.
Well, I don't think given a lot about his behavior and appearance, I don't think he cares about what others think.
I just think there's so many silly poses you could do in that instance. It would just be a lot of fun.
I mean, he does quite a number of silly poses.
Oh, yeah.
And then we arrive to where Subaru was intending to battle Beetlejuice with Julius. The base of that cliff, Julius comes out, and then the two of them have another sort of tense, vaguely awkward exchange, and the only thing I could think of was that they should just fuck already and get it over with. I mean, Jesus Christ. I bet Beetlejuice was getting pretty bored, and then he ended up basically saying something to that effect.
It's a classic anime thing, though. He can't move until they're done talking.
Exactly. He couldn't possibly attack them or anything. I am also not sure I approve of Subaru and Julius explaining things to Beetlejuice about how Julius could see the authority, the Shadow Hands. I know that was done for the benefit of the audience to explain what was going on, to remind us of the ability that Julius demonstrated in the previous episode, that he could connect everyone's senses.
Yeah, through Nect.
Yeah, but still, not the best strategy when you're fighting somebody.
And I also just want to mention too that around the end credits, when they're appearing at around 23:39, for a split second, like Julius's smile disappears. Which again, I'm not harping at all on the studio for doing that. I always just think little bits and pieces like that are very interesting when they happen in a really like high quality show. So, and it's also he's in the foreground too, so it's a pretty obvious thing to see. But I still thought that was interesting that, that happened.
Sadly, only one episode left, so stay tuned for our review for that one. And like the video if you liked the video, subscribe if you want to get more anime and manga review content. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.